Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, I want to go over the Kyle Dubas press conference from yesterday and just break down everything that he had to say and what it could mean moving forward. So to kick things off, I wanted to start with this. And Terry Koshin adds here, the Dubas says that he wants to see what a full Leafs lineup can do for the next little while, provided there are no further injuries once Muzzin returns, before deciding which course to take ahead of the March 21st deadline. And he also notes that he has a lot of faith in this current group. And I don't blame Dubas for having faith in this group. Yes, they're third in the Atlantic Division, but the Lightning and Panthers have played 4 and 5 more games than them, respectively. And if you sort the standings by points percentage, they actually leap over the Tampa Bay Lightning here. The Maple Leafs own the second best record in terms of points percentage since the beginning of November, going 25-6-2 over that span, only behind the Colorado Avalanche. And again, since the beginning of 2022, yes, there's been a lot of multi-goal blown leads, but they've still found a way to be 9-2-1 since the beginning of the new year, and third in the entire NHL in terms of points percentage, only behind the Minnesota Wild and the Colorado Avalanche, who are 15-0-2 to start 2022. Kyle Dubas also noted that the play of Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren, who will have a little more runway in the coming weeks, will be a factor in what is done before the trade deadline. Since the beginning of 2022, Rasmus Sandin ranks 4th in terms of Maple Leafs defenders in time on ice per game, and in those minutes, the Maple Leafs controlled the majority of the shot attempts, the actual shots, the goals for, the expected goals for, the scoring opportunities, and just about everything else. He's been amazing to start this year, and according to Kyle Dubas, he's only going to be seeing a larger role moving forward. And to give some credit to Timothy Liljegren here, he's not last in terms of Maple Leafs defenders when it comes to time on ice per game. That goes to Travis Dermott. And when we're looking at Liljegren's stats in the minutes that he's played, the Maple Leafs are controlling the vast majority, not just a little bit of the majority, the vast majority of the shot attempts, the actual shots, the actual goals, the expected goals, the scoring opportunities, the whole shebang. Now, mind you, he is playing a little bit more of a sheltered role offensively than what Travis Dermott has, but he's getting more of a leash. And that is the right thing to do. You want to be able to push them to their limits and use as much time as you absolutely have to evaluate what you have in those guys. But even if they do perform well, I do still think they go out there and upgrade that defensive core. All that means is that you can rely on them if you need them, and that's called depth. And that brings us to the practice lines, because the press conference did take place after a team practice. And the biggest thing that we can take away from this is that Jake Muzzin was wearing a regular practice uniform. He wasn't in non-contact red or yellow or whatever it is. So that means that he is nearing a return to the lineup. They wouldn't say exactly when. I can't imagine that being tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes, but soon. Could mean days or in another week or so. And even though Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren are probably going to get an extended look over the next month or so, it would be nice to still have Jake Muzzin in the lineup, right? Maybe on nights where they just don't have it or it's a tougher matchup. Would be nice to have him there to kind of insulate those guys when maybe they just don't have it. But to be fair to Jake Muzzin, and even give some credit to Justin Hall, who's been pretty great going back to about the beginning of December, but especially in 2022 with or without Jake Muzzin, that pairing in a limited amount of ice time like we've shown before had been able to be effective for the Toronto Maple Leafs, as in the ice time that they've played together, the Leafs have controlled the majority of the shot attempts, the actual shots, the actual goals, the expected goals, and the scoring opportunities, and that's with them being back as that shutdown pair. So hopefully Muzzin and Hall are able to continue that play even after Muzzin gets back from injury. But it was also announced that Peter Mrazek is going to be getting the start tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes. And it's going to be a goaltending matchup of Peter Mrazek and Frederik Andersen, two goalies who are playing against their former teams. The numbers that are on the screen right now, we talked about at length in a previous video, and I'll leave that linked above the screen and at the end of this one. But Peter Mrazek, since the start of 2022, has been on fire for the Maple Leafs. Mind you, it's only in 4 games, and 2 of them were bad, 2 of them were good, and it's not against the toughest of opponents. So tonight's game against the Carolina Hurricanes is going to be a really good test for Peter Mrazek, and if he doesn't play so well in this game, I'm sure there'll be another opportunity for him to bounce back, and that's just what it is, right? Going into this season, the goaltending situation was supposed to be a tandem. Peter Mrazek got injured and was injured for the most part of the first half of this year, and Jack Campbell had to carry the load, and he ran with it and was absolutely phenomenal. He's in a little bit of a slump right now. The defense in front of him not really helping him out too much, but at the same time, you ride the guy who's hot, and that's what a goaltending tandem is. The Maple Leafs have 40 games remaining between now and the end of the regular season. And even though it's a tandem, there is a 1A and a 1B. Jack is still that 1A guy, so he deserves to play the majority of the games between now and the end of the regular season. But make no mistake, they do need Peter Mrazek to play at least between 15 to 20 of those games. But now getting into the part of the press conference where Kyle Dubas talked to trade specifics, he confirmed what Chris Johnston had said a couple of weeks ago, that they prefer to add players at the trade deadline that have term on their contract. We've talked about this at length already, and I will leave that linked above the screen and at the end of this one as well. But we went over how that would be possible for the Toronto Maple Leafs to add players with term remaining on their contracts a couple of times now over the last couple of weeks. And it's extremely difficult. Even if you want to say that, yeah, I mean, they can move out a guy like a Dermott, they can move out a guy like a Ritchie, that only leaves them with $11.2 million to re-sign Jack Campbell and 6 or 7 other players on top of him to fill out this roster. So if the Maple Leafs really are set on adding a player who has multiple years remaining on his deal at this year's trade deadline, it could mean a couple of three things. It could be a situation where that's just best case scenario and that's where they're starting and they're going to work down from there if it's not possible. But if they shift their focus from adding players with term to rental players, it's rumored that the asking price on any of the better defensemen that are going to be available at this year's trade deadline is a first and a third round pick. So if you're looking at that price tag, it's almost worth the headache and the extra cost to go out there and acquire a guy that you can slot into next year's lineup as well. And who knows? Maybe they find the right fit and this hypothetical team is even willing to retain salary on this hypothetical player. And at that point, I would be willing to pay the price that cost. And lastly, it could mean that the Maple Leafs are maybe going to be in a position to where they'd have to move on from hypothetically and potentially more than just Travis Dermott and Nick Ritchie. Maybe another guy also gets moved off the roster. And then Kyle Dubas was asked about Rodion Amirov and where he is in his development right now, because the KHL announced that it was canceling the remainder of its regular season and are now heading into their playoffs. And I would imagine that at the end of Rodion Amirov's team's playoffs that he would make his way over to North America. But Kyle Dubas noted that there's a medical situation that they're going on with right now. I don't necessarily know what that is. I know that his team in the KHL had a COVID-19 outbreak, but that was towards the end of December, early January. Hopefully everything is okay over there. Obviously there's other stuff going on as well. But maybe we see Rodion Amirov with the Marlies before the end of this season. And then Dubas was also asked about the possibility of Josh Ho-Sang's chance of landing a contract with the Maple Leafs if he were to play well at the Olympics, because he's on Team Canada's Olympic team. And Kyle Dubas gave a very long answer that was very complimentary towards Josh and his play this year, but also noted that the team is very close to the limit on the amount of professional contracts that they can have. Josh Ho-Sang is currently on an American Hockey League contract, which means that if the Maple Leafs wanted to insert him into their lineup, they would first need to sign him to an NHL deal. And according to Cap Friendly, they're at 46 out of 50 contracts, but according to Puckpedia, they're at 48 out of 50. I don't know who to go with or what the discrepancy is there, but the point is that there's a limited amount of spots, and if you're looking to add players to the team at the deadline, I don't know how many guys you can count on being able to move out, so they need to be careful. And if you're maybe looking to sign an undrafted free agent or someone out of college, you don't want to be at 50 out of 50. We've mentioned this before, but just to bring it back up while we're on the topic, if Josh Ho-Sang were to sign a contract with the Leafs, he would not need to clear waivers in order to be called up. If you've heard that from anywhere else, they're just mistaken. That's only for players who have played outside of North America once the NHL season has started. And just to check in on how some of the Toronto Marlies players are playing, because as Kyle noted there under his tweet, Brett Seney has kind of outplayed Josh Ho-Sang, but Ho-Sang's going to have an opportunity to play at the Olympics, and he's actually on their first line right now with Mason McTavish and Eric Stahl. So we'll see how he fares there. But Brett Seney, Joseph Duszak, Alex Steeves even, who we saw in a recent stint, Joey Anderson having pretty good seasons as well. And Nick Robertson is back. Obviously, I can't show you the highlight without getting demonetized, but Robertson did score his first goal since coming back from injury the other day, and it was a really nice one where he just ripped a shot from the top of the circle and it went right in. It would be awesome if he could catch fire with the Marlies. I don't know if he makes the Maple Leafs because they're really, really deep at forward right now, and the forward lines are really rolling, but it would be nice to know that he's there if they do need him. I think that's everything from yesterday's press conference. If I missed anything, just let me know down in the comment section and I will pin a comment. But I think we've covered most of the topics that Kyle Dubas touched on yesterday already in depth, and we're going to continue to expand upon some of the things that he talked about as well in upcoming videos. Like, who could the player with term remaining on their contract be? Is it a forward? Is it a defenseman? Are there some attractive options out there? I don't know. You're going to have to like the video if you did like it and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way, right? Subscribe to find out. That's gonna be it for this one, guys. I've already said the outro. So hope everyone's doing well and should expect another couple of videos this week.